Welcome. I was asked to do a tutorial on how to animate sections in a SketchUp model, and I did this for the purpose of animating this construction sequence on this house that I'm designing right now. So for keep it simple for this tutorial, I got everything off. I've cut everything out of here except for the up to the first floor level. So basically, the key to this is that you're putting section planes, two section planes in each group that you want to animate. So I've got footings, I have foundation walls, I have basement framing, I have first floor trusses, and I have subfloor. And I want this thing to kind of grow out of the ground. I want maybe the footings and the foundation walls and the framing to sort of come from the bottom and work their way up. But the trusses and the subfloor want to come in from the side, as if each of the trusses are being placed one at a time. So you can change the direction of your section cuts. But the first thing you need to do, right now I've already, for the sake of time, I'm going to cut the section cuts on. I've already got this. If you see all these planes, these are all the section planes that I have. So every one of those groups has them, so they get a little bit confusing. But the basement, or excuse me, the footing does not have one yet. So I'm going to, for right now, I'm going to cut those, the visibility of those off right now. I'm going to edit this group. And I'm going to add a section plane to the top. That cuts them all back on, but you get the point there. So I've added a section plane, which is this orange one that you see here now. I'm going to make this an active cut, and I'm going to move it up so we can see that I want this just above the rebar grid that I've got. So that's above it. Alright, then I'm going to add another section cut down low, again in the horizontal. That's now become the active one. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to move it as well. I'm going to move it down to where I don't see any footings, so it grows out of the ground. Okay, done. Alright, so that's going to be my starting point. If I was to cut off section planes, it would be nice and clean, except I'm in the edit mode. Okay, so I'm going to make that the starting point. And what I'm going to do is go to scenes. First of all, I'm going to save this thing because it's telling me a lot for some reason. I'm going to add a scene because I don't want to see anything to start out with. So I'm adding a scene, and I'm going to take off the camera location. The camera location is important later on if you want to build this animation. If you want it to be just a sitting structure that's going straight up like a time-lapse thing, you keep your camera location off. If you want to fly around while it's doing that, you'll cut the camera location on, but I save that for last when I'm actually building the one I want to see. So I'm going to name this Start, and I'm going to refresh it since I cut the camera location off. Okay, so now we have our start. Okay, then I'm going to go through and change the, I'm going to edit this group that we were in, but I'm going to make this section cut that's at the top of the rebar the active cut. Now you're going to see through all those planes. It gets confusing because every one of these groups has its own, has two planes, so you got to kind of sort through that. But you can see that that's the ultimate view that I want to get up to. Okay, so I'm going to make that the active cut, and then I'm going to make another scene or add another scene, and I'm going to call this footings. Okay, I'm done editing that group. Okay, now my footings are on. The next one I'm going to have is the foundation walls, and they're going to start growing up out of there too. So that's the next trick, is actually finding which one is my foundation wall, which I think it's probably, it's one of these. I'm going to try this one right here. Make that the active cut, and that was my foundation walls. So the top section plane, the one that makes you visualize it, that's the one you have to make active. It took forever to figure this out, but once you get the hold of it, it's okay. So we're going to add another scene. I'm going to call this one Foundation. Okay, and just to try it out for now, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the section planes. I'm toggling the visibility of that, and I'm going to start from the beginning. So it's going back to the start. We should have nothing on the screen. To test this, there's our footings coming up out of the ground, our rebar cage coming out of the ground, and then our foundation walls coming on up too. Okay, So that's pretty cool. That's the beginning of it. All right, and then I'm going to cut those section planes back on. This time I want the framing to come up, the basement framing. Well, no, let's take that back. I want the subslab, the gravel subslab to show up, which is I think this one right here. Didn't select it too good here. Let's try this. I'm hitting on the wrong one. There we go. That's the gravel that I want to see. So I've made that one active. That's my gravel subslab. So I'm going to add a scene, and I'm going to call this one subslab. Get out of editing that group. I'm going to refresh that. Now, since I did this to the side, that gravel's going to come growing out from one side to the other side, just because I think it looks kind of cool. All right, then I'm going to do the same thing for my basement slab, which is this one right here. If I edit the group and I make this the active cut, you're going to see the garage of the basement slab. So get out of that edit. Now we've built the slab into place. I'm going to add a scene. Just call this slab. All right. So just continuing on, the next thing we're going to do is cut on the framing, which I think is this one right here, because it's, make that active cut. There's our basement walls. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and add a scene. Call this basement walls. Alright, and then these two up here represent the trusses and the subfloor, and I don't remember which one is which, so I'm just going to try it and see which one that is. Make that active, and that was the subfloor, so that's the wrong one. I want to do the trusses first. I make that one active, and now I can see my floor trusses. So I'm going to come over here and add a scene, and I'm going to name this one floor trusses. Oops, how come that one came on? Let's do a preview of that. Okay, they both came on at the same time, and I did not want to do that. So I'm going to come back and double check that one. I think I did both of them. So let's make this the active cut, and we see our floor trusses. All right, now I'm going to, let's see, hold on. Okay, basement walls we were good on. That's what we want to see at basement walls. When we go to floor trusses, okay, we do not want to see the subfloor, so I'm going to cut off the subfloor. Excuse me, I'm going to come down here and make this other cut the active one. Like I said, it's a booger sometimes. Making this the active cut. Alright. Now my floor trusses should be all on their own. And since I've already named this scene floor trusses, I'm just going to refresh this or update this scene. Alright, now lastly, it's that subfloor that we were messing with. So I'm going to cut that subfloor on and make this the active section cut. And you'll see the subfloor. And now I'm going to add a scene and call this subfloor. Okay, so now I'm going to cut off these section planes because they're driving me crazy. So now if we go back to the start, everything's dissolving, going back to the beginning. I'm going to say view animation and play the animation, and it's going to go through, and since the camera location was not checked, it's going to just be right where the camera's looking. And voila. Subslab's going to cut across with the gravel. Those are my indentations for the footings for the monolithic pour. There's the concrete coming through. There's our walls growing up. Floor trusses are going to come off from the side. Change that viewpoint if you want to. Subfloors coming across. So that's it. And then you can export that as a movie file or however you wish to do it. But thanks, guys. That's the tutorial, and wish you well.